who the readers are. I don't think the microphone's working. Is this working? Oh, good. I need to bring it closer. Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and especially when you could be at home watching the impeachment trials, which I don't know if anybody wants to watch. Welcome to Poems of Love and Loss by Suppose and I's Poets. My name is Pat Green, and I'm the leader of the group. Suppose and I's is a workshop for poets that meets here at the Kelly Writers House twice a month. And we've been in existence for almost 20 years. And we have a very diverse group, from beginning poets all the way to people who have published their poems in their books before. Before we go any further, I'd like to thank the Writers House for hosting us tonight, and in fact for hosting us all year, but especially for helping us with our event tonight. After the reading, we're going to have a reception in the dining room back there with food and drinks, so I really welcome all of you to come and join us and meet the poets, or just have a glass of wine and some food and enjoy that. Tonight we have 12 poets who are going to read, and each poet's going to come up and introduce themselves as they come up to the podium. And everyone's going to be reading their original works. Did everybody get one of our programs so you can see what poems are going to be read? The programs are right by the door there. If you need to go back and get one, feel free. Since I'm already up here, I'm going to go ahead and start. That way I don't have to come back up again later. I chose poems that I thought fit the topic. So most of the poems that I'm reading tonight, since it's about love and loss, are ones that I wrote quite some time ago. But I hope they still work. The first poem deals with love sickness and some thoughts about curing the lovesick heart. Lovesick heart. What mystery lies in the heart? Knotty vines wrapped around poppy red petals. Never, never is love enclosed inside the heart. Never will it rest there even for minutes without knocking hard against the walls, trying to get out. He could be heart-struck in a seismic way of rapture, but moving only above the tree line. The sky is fingernail pink, sparkling with optimism, and his heart is softly velvet like a bloodhound's long ear, furred and warm. If the doctor knows, she's not telling. Backstage, she cries as she manipulates genes and molecules, looking at endless combinations of treatment plans. Her stealth will stun the audience when the curtain rises, gold tassels dragging on hard wood, as applause resuscitates even the patient. Do you know how to cure this or that? On TV, I watch the charlatan herbalist recommend vitamins and krill oil as Dr. Oz smiles, bouncing on his feet, showing off diseased body parts, flabby hearts, streaked gray, and devoid of elasticity like an old woman's underwear. When I see this charade, I long to buy bottles of cure-all. This is what the doctors don't tell us. There is no diagnosis, no remedy, no prognosis. Please tell me there's a hospital for it, full of specialists and doctors with stronger, thicker hearts, beating smart under their starched white jackets. This next one is loosely based on the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale, The Princess and the Pea. The Princess and the Pea. There's a pea under my lover's mattress. I feel it every time I fall into bed. It leaves brownish bruises on my tender skin. When I first glimpsed these vague marks, I didn't know where I'd gotten them. Then I remembered the pea against my body, like gravel or a stone stuck in a shoe. First, there was just a single pea. Since then, more have followed. One near the foot of the bed, one under my pillow. Yesterday, after making love, I reached under the mattress and pulled out a pea. I examined it, crushed the tough outer shell between my fingers. It contained a hard truth. I suspect there are even more difficult truths in some of the others. This may be the shortest poem I ever wrote. A red-tailed hawk in the backyard. A hawk is moving its beak through what resembles a pile of ashes in a heap on the ground. I do a double take. The hawk is looking, frantic, calling for its mate, digging through a pile of feathers left by the fox, finding neither flesh nor bone. I don't write many prose poems, and this next one is one I thought was a good fit for tonight's reading. I wrote it some time ago. Today, probably, I know even less about love than I did then. It's called What Little I Know About Love. 1. Passion. We were in love once, the kind that blocks out everything but itself. I told him then, I think men and women aren't that different. They want the same things in life. The way I remember it, he agreed. We had this conversation in a parked car, the windows steamy, and it was true at the time. When we were obsessed with each other, that was all that mattered. Time passed. Let loose from obsession, we drifted until we were no longer moving in the same direction. 2. Loss. When you get older, you stop trying to figure out love. In fact, you sort of stop trying entirely. Love seems like a sense you once had, but lost. Psychologists say that many people who become blind as adults gradually lose their visual imagery. They can no longer imagine faces, rooms, landscapes they once knew. This is called deep blindness. People who lose love also lose the ability to imagine it, what it was like, how it felt. They become deeply love blind. 3. Disequilibrium. Sometimes there's a covering of snow over frozen ground, or in summer, resignation makes the air thick. No wind, no stirring of leaves, no motion from tree limbs. All nature is still, unmoving. And with it comes a peacefulness, almost like contentment. Years ago, my friend, a beautiful woman, became exasperated with her volatile romantic relationship. I just want peace of mind, she cried. It sounded so reasonable, but all I could think of was, girlfriend, you might as well be dead. Wanting peace of mind. Don't we all? We wait for it, full of hope. And yet, when we get it, we search the sky for storms and wait for rain to fall again like tears on our faces. Thank you.
Hello. First, thank you to our leader, Pat Green, for organizing this event. I am Virginia Badler and have been in the group since March 2016. I have 2 poems to read. The second one comes with an explanation. Prison. Periodically, I jiggle the windows, try the door, see if anything has changed. At times, my hands are missing and the ability to do things lacking. Most times, I have no feet to move. I am allowed unlimited sight. Sound is rationed, better not used. I can hear, always. This completes the prison. Right-angled squares and rectangles. I am the only curved surface. I tried again tonight, but everything remains the same. My words can still only be used with permission. I have thought that if I had feet, I would leave, but instead, I need wings. My next poem is a relatively new form called the word sonnet. The earliest published examples are from 1985. Like the traditional form, it has 14 lines, but with only one word set for each verse. And I'm going to show you what it looks like here, kind of like a tree trunk. And I found it actually on the internet, and I thought this is fascinating. I'm going to try that. Rose, modest, virgin, bud, tight, calyx, cloak, petals, open, wide, sweet, scented, labia, luring, bee. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Valerie Loveland. This is about being a part of a community garden, which I had no idea how much drama was involved in a community garden. We got a really complete lesson from it. This is called Wasps Do Not Pollinate. Wasps kill bees because their eyesight is better than ours. They see a bee and know they aren't looking in a mirror. I said bees flew out of the little library box on the sidewalk and stung my eyebrow, but I was corrected. First, I was corrected by the wasp for opening the library door. Then I was corrected by someone on my Facebook saying that it had to be a wasp. It could not have been a bee because bees are our friends. I heard that they would be my friend if I made a bee box, but where can I keep bees in the city? Where can I get my own yard in the city? The closest I can get to having my own yard here is a plot in the community garden or a plot in the cemetery. There's a wasp's nest in the garden, and everyone argues about whether or not wasps help our crops. They don't. They argue about what is nature and what is a square of land in the middle of a city pretending to be nature. They said this wasp was not my friend because he made my face tingle. I've had friends that made my face tingle. I've had friends that hurt my face more than this. So I have a commute for the first time in a really long time, and I hadn't been listening to music, and now I get to have a music project where I listen to new things all the time. And I listened to Kraftwerk for the first time recently. It's really, really fun. I thought a robot was falling in love with me, but I was listening to Kraftwerk. Although I think he might talk this way to everyone. Robots became sentient in Dusseldorf in 1970. I am positive that there have been at least 13 sentient robots on our planet because there have been 13 members of Kraftwerk. My husband's name is Christopher, spelled with a K, and even with his affinity for altered spelling, he has never even heard of Kraftwerk. How was video game music invented before video games? Sometimes they repeat themselves too many times, even after I said I heard them the first time. But usually they know exactly what I want to hear. Chatbots were invented in 1970s with an altered voice modulator. We didn't know because it only modulated binary accents. At first, it only worked on zeros, and then after more research, it could also modulate the ones. Are matching outfits a human thing or a robot thing? I'm not sure how I should address a drum machine. I have electricity in my body too. I'm electric, but I am not electronic. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Janine Van Patten, and I also have a poem about being part of a community garden. So I think that's probably why I'm reading after you. So, this is called Winterize Your Plots. The community garden elders tell me, let me start over. Winterize your plots. The community garden elders tell me. The stalks will say, let me lay in the sun, so I mummify and shrivel up. Fill my lungs with water, so I sink to the bottom of the sea. Or place me in the shade, so my cells can carry on eating themselves from the inside out. The tomatoes and peppers will say, I will bloat, then my organs, muscles, and skin will liquefy, evaporate into static, and join the whispers of the dead. The black currant bush will say, please don't pull me out. My berries are sour to you, I know. I am like Eve, cast out all too often. There are things that can be done to me to make me pleasurable. Ask Mary, she knows. Fuck that and this garden and the rib I was made out of. The dirt will provide until we betray it. What is death anyway? The melting of the polar ice, I think. God might answer, don't be fooled by the illusion that your nails are growing. It is the skin shrinking in death. Okay. And then this poem, next poem, is a flashback for those of us who grew up with a cassette player. And to get our songs, we had to wait forever and listen to the radio and record. Waiting. Like the aphrodisiac of trying to record my favorite song, the 80s tape recorder pushed up against the radio, waiting for the DJ to play that one song. Pause button along with the record button pushed down. Pushing one down to record took the weight of a whole body funneled into one finger. So many lost parts of songs, so many unsure endings, trying to push at the right moment for that one song. Waiting to be unpaused for your lips, the breath of the radio dies a little before it meets the mouth of the cassette recorder. And this next one is kind of like an in-between, like fluffy poem, but I had to put like a positive one. So, space sip. You said this came from outer space. Pieces of the sun are inside. As you held up the glass of orange juice, I looked at this visitor from outer space and wrapped my eyes around the rim of the glass, then poured my bewildered look into you and saw pieces of my heart orbiting you, all in a sip. And then the last one is not really about the community garden, but it has some vegetables in there, or fruits. I don't know how you want to go with it. The not relationship. You said we were hoagie compatible. I keep my hoagies whole. I do not want to split my hoagie in half with you. You said we were hoagie compatible. Your side minus the tomatoes, but my side so overly doused with them, I eat tomatoes raw, straight from the garden, heirlooms like Hungarian, Italian, Amish paste, yellow icicle, beauty queen, green zebra, Tsar's royal gift, and pink Berkeley tie-dye. My side so overly doused with tomatoes and vinegar, its loving bitterness. I drink vinegar straight in shots, hold the mayo, hold the compatibility checklist, pour me another shot of vinegar. I'll lick the salt, swig it back, and suck on a pink Berkeley tie-dye, for better or for worse. So, that's it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tom DiGidio, and a professor read this poem of mine and warned me that I should footnote it. But maybe that was just a professorial comment. But I am going to introduce it a little bit, in part due to his urging. And it's called, first of all, Carmina metrica, which is Latin. Ooh. And it simply means metric poetry in Latin. And I wrote it because there's a group in New York City where I used to live called Carmine Street Metrics. It's a group of poets who write poetry that is metrically correct, and they use all kinds of various abstruse forms, and their poetry rhymes, and so on and so forth. And so I wrote this poem actually to make fun of them. And it's kind of a good-natured ribbing. And in the poem, I also even conflate literary and grammatical terms with like sexual terms. And yeah. There's a little bit of Latin in it. That doesn't matter. And even more confusing, it's actually a love poem to my ex-Japanese girlfriend of a long time ago, who, when we were living in New York, left me to go to Harvard to study Latin. So that's how it all kind of ties together. And also, for those of you who are fond of literary curiosities, you can find in Virgil's epic Roman poem, the Aeneid, examples of perfect haiku, just by pure coincidence. Okay, now I'm going to read it. Carmina metrica. I wrote my love a Latin letter in verse, a dirty trick to use against the daughter of a samurai, and sent my romance words to a second Cambridge, a damned clever bunch of antique words whipped sharply into shape by the always quick-witted lad I then long ago was. Selfish to a fault, his missive missing the mark, so perfectly confected, Carmina condere, heroic coupling described in heroic couplets, chiming so well as to be better than that newfangled thing called rhyme could ever be. The thrusting wave of the first 4 feet of the hexameter curls over in the dactylic fifth and breaks on the final spondee to ebb again with the backwash of the pentameter, echoing our nights together, so many that even then I marveled at how she managed to keep her declensions straight after our lengthy conjugations. Tota nocte had all but obliterated sleep. My best Palmer method could not hope to compete against her father's graceful brushstrokes, nor did I don any ceremonial samurai robes before commencing, yet I soon received a passing grade from my lover, who declared that I'd made no mistakes. Poor swap for the loss of my Eurydice to Harvard, or rather, she was one of the frenzied bacchantes who had ripped off the head of Orpheus, and I was the one needing rescue from the underworld. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Sharon Black, and I'm going to start with, I'm hearing some themes tonight, bees and wasps and community gardens, and so I'm going to riff off Poet's Heartsick, sort of a poem about a pathological love, obsessive love that in need of interventions. This is called Chemotherapy Love Poem. I've tried everything, every sort of exorcism, which gets me thinking what we need is a chemotherapy for the heart. Extreme medicine for sure, reserved only for those with no hope, whose longing has ravaged every organ system of their body. I can see them now, the terminally lovesick, arriving jet-lagged from all points of the globe, their swollen hearts heavy as sod, only to be greeted by a lot of forms to fill out. Though these read like confessions by the time you're through, we all ask for more paper. Then conferences with doctors, and there, too, you must describe your love. What did he look like? Why did she leave? On and on you spill your guts. Funny how they really seem to listen, and as they listen, they are mixing just the right combination of poisons to target your particular strain of infatuation. Finally, it's time to roll up your sleeve, begin the IV, and so flood your heart to its toxic brink of non-feeling. Oh, maybe you have a vague memory of having loved, say, your mother, or you might mouth no under your breath if you witness bullies beating with baseball bats, an only slightly nerdier version of your brother. But basically, by the final treatment, you are numb to all you ever loved. The hobo, the oboe, diner mashed potatoes, NHL hat tricks, Van Morrison, Nancy Wilson because she sounds like Jimmy Scott because he sounds like Nancy Wilson. Surrealism, ice cream on waffles, Alaska, though you've never been there, New York, though you have. Ferris wheels, blue spruce, green herons, runway models, cream of wheat, of course poetry, Stevens, Neruda, O'Hara, all moody bodies of water, a fish, your daughter named Mr. Window, a slug, your son named Sluggy, Dr. Zhivago, Edward Scissorhands, old porches with hanging swings, favorite lovers now clumped with the ones you merely tolerated, calculating how to let them down easy. Not to mention the one that broke you down, brought you to this state, this madness. You can look at her now like you're looking at a used wedge of lemon from someone's iced tea or mess of lobster, and that's when you know you're cured. Though at the follow-up visit, you can't exactly thank them with a heartfelt shake. They know that. Still, you go through the motions. You ask when the rest will come back. That's when they tell you about the hair of cancer patients, how it comes back even thicker. So, too, your dry, ash-white heart will fill itself up again. One day you'll kiss the flowers and snow and maybe even the dust in the road. Though now, if you wake up at night, don't be surprised if you're thinking about the price of store-brand tuna in 6 1/4 cans. Give it time, they say, and they want to be sure you aren't driving yet. They tell you as you're signing one more release that patients have been known not to stop for pedestrians, not even when they hit them. They say those are the ones they really cured. This next one is shorter. Both the next two are shorter. My Antarctica love poem. Thought I'd throw a little winter snow into the mix tonight. What sort of explorer are you, trudging this white expanse, as if to lose yourself inside some giant envelope of snow that's never opened so no one knows? What are you looking for in this desert of ice? Everyone else turned off way back. I watch you approach without map or mirror. Do I know you with your padding and your poles, your face mask with its icy mustache? What a trooper, the lengths you've crossed to reach this station, and these my course supplies. And the last one is about a more stable, long-lasting love, and what the reasons for that are always a mystery. The reason why love lasts and why others doesn't. So this is called Some Other Reasons I Can Think of. Because you knew why cormorants after fishing sit like that, wings held out, awkward, stiff, broken-like, so as to expose them to the most sun. Their wing spreads, irregular but tireless clotheslines on which glistening wet black feathers are hung. An act I thought unnatural until you explained, because it didn't make sense, and now it does, and because we waited there for them to rise up over the bay at a weight finally the sky would hold. Thank you.
I'm Ross Bender, and I'll be reading Strange Women's Suite. But first, I'd like to plug my latest book, The Great Baltimore Avenue Sinkhole Disaster and Other Tales of University City Village, and it's dedicated to the Institute for Research in Cognitive Studies at the University of Pennsylvania, which is now thankfully defunct. Buy my book, $10 on Amazon. Strange women approach me on the trolley, wanting to know my business. They're subtle, asking for directions, asking for a cigarette. Don't they know you can't smoke on the trolley? Might be social workers, might be ladies of the night, might all be a honey trap. You never know when you're riding the trolley. That's why I just say no, keep staring ahead in the distance, watching the streets go by and the people dancing. Murals, coffee shops, hair braiding salons, and days go by. You see women on the trolley you think you recognize or might want to talk to. Or exotic women in rain ponchos showing the Chinese character for the way, in Japanese, michi. When you get a little closer, you see it's just some football logo, and you feel foolish for having asked, "Why are you wearing michi on your poncho?" These women must think you're nuts. That's why I just say no to myself when I get the impulse to talk to strangers. Keep staring ahead in the distance, watching the streets go by. I sold my soul to a big-breasted girl. She suckled me on gin and consolation, and she traded my soul to the CIA next morning at Grand Central Station. Down on the futures market, dead souls go for pennies or a dime for the dozen, and the live souls trade for $1 a day, and the Brits trade their souls to the cousins. The devil runs a hedge fund on bundles of souls, and he sells his take to the wizards, and the devil is a snake, and his mother is a whore, and the devil is a Texas horned lizard. I sold my soul to a friendly-looking girl, but she turned me over in the morning. She was sweet as clover honey in a honey trap, but I was too damned blind to read the warning. I was too damned blind, and I was too strung out. I was living on gin and self-pity. So I sold my soul to this sympathetic girl, real nice and intellectual and pretty. So virgins, watch your backs and your fronts and your sides, and don't let your knickers down easy. You don't trust your mother, and you don't trust yourself, and you don't trust the guys who look sleazy. Look out, kid, 'cause there's something you did, and the secret police are gonna find it, and they'll blast your mind in a faraway jail. They will render your soul and unwind it. But your soul will fly to a faraway place where you can't trust your friends or your mother. There you can't trust yourself because you do not exist. So you must trust your sisters and your brothers. Your sisters won't screw you, and your brothers won't too, and that is how you will know them, because you can recognize the lies that are deep within the eyes of the handlers who just want you to owe them. Then hold on strong in that faraway jail where the torturers can no longer touch you. They will do their worst to shock you back, but you will find they can no longer touch you. In that faraway place where there is no time, The sisters will soothe you in the twilight, and they'll tend your wounds in the pale full moon while you disappear north through the skylight. Down on the futures market, dead souls go for pennies or a dime for the dozen, and the live souls trade for $1 a day, and the Brits trade their souls to the cousins.
Hello, I'm Diane Wilder, and my first poem tonight is based on a photograph that I love by Francesca Woodman, who was a photographer who died very young. She was 22, died in the early 80s, and was really taking photos of herself since the time she was about 13. And there's one where she's standing like this, and she's put birch bark down her arms, and she's Daphne from Greek myth, the woman who turns into a tree as she's being pursued by Apollo. And I began to think about her and her work and her career, and kind of imagining what it might have been like to have been her, and reimagining her as Daphne with Apollo on a date circa 1980 at the MacDowell colony. So this is in her memory. Vouvray spilled from their plastic cups, bases tipsy on the mossy patch behind the summer cabins. Theirs for the season, courtesy of the artist's colony, 3 meals a day and solitude. Seeking their vast interiors within, enclosed spaces of mildewed pine and clanking screened parched doors, each slightly unhinged in their own way. She wanted that morning light before it changed into a damp pillow of New Hampshire tint. He revised his 7th chapter, then spent hours erasing margin notes from chapters 1 to 6. She never did not have her camera, roamed the forest, bringing to it her loam and lensing. He rarely wrote any place other than his room, hazed with smoke, the typewriter pecked with ash and rubber orts. Their agreed-upon rendezvous each noon brought her back to him, pushed him out his cabin door, equipoised in goose-bumped skin, wax paper-wrapped sandwiches from the dining room cling and rub as they are untrapped. They kiss. There is this midday a clutch of sound from above, a cascade of goose already bent on the man-made lake, dammed, a hollow concrete fuzziness of wet and complicated engineering that keeps the water topped. There is this then, with the birds thrumming her laughter, a catch that takes hold, then spills, the unbalanced liberty of their creativities. She looks up, already rolled from under him, framing the V of their flight, adjusting exposure, focusing where they will be and what will be her last roll of film. An act so free and libertine, he saw her arms transform, blanched white with sun. Her limbs reached the canopy, to touch the other trees, to skim the down of the geese, to mount earth to sky. He lies in her shadow blocked. He cannot hope to capture this. The bark is hers. It is not his. Yet he turns, goes to his cabin, types. My next poem, Samizdat, is a Russian for self-published in a very censored culture. Poets and writers would type their own work and kind of hand it to each other and hide it in magazines and whatnot. And I'd been playing with this idea for a while, and also with the Pushkin poem, Ya vas lubil, I once loved you. There's something just really wonderful about, I think, Russian culture and the way they approach poetry. It's very big. It's, social. People get together and they read big poems. So I tried to write a big poem. It's for me not very big, but I did my best. I tried to be very Pushkin-like in this. So I sent this to a friend recently. He said, "Oh, I love your draft." I was like, "No, not a draft. I'm reading this tonight. Please, no." So I think by just being big with my hands, you'll understand that there's this big thing in it. And there are a couple translations when I get to "so tenderly, so madly." That is actually Pushkin's lines. I've stolen from him. So, Samistat. Do not give me hope, my love, that there will be another day as happy as the one we shared 4 years ago, where we ate dinner and under the moon swung our arms, hands clasped, as we walked back to the party. And your wife had not yet called you home. I once loved you so tenderly, so madly, that I was not myself. I was more layers and exquisite touch, more felt, more stuffed, more. This is the tug of more and less, where I have thinned myself, where the reward is, where the knack is, where the forward fall is always lack. My last poem, short one. The craziness of love, right? Come here, come here, come here, go away, go away, go away. Strangers fall in love, zap, arc light, others grab, finger dumb, only to repel those held most dear, seeing and sawing, gnawing ankles off in polar bear trapped hugs. You've heard this one before. North Pole lures South Pole onto an ice floe, pushes her with his toe out to sea, SOS, magnetic flux, girdles her majesty, and she drags him, dinghy wed, outbound channel, past buoys and cruise ships and seals. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carol Bernstein. Try to just move this down a little bit. Okay. So it's interesting that we've had a lot of sort of gardening themes in the dead of winter, because I have one as well. Let me just get some water here. I'm going to read a poem that is basically a love poem to a tree. And it's, I forgot to plug my book. Wait, terrible. Okay, so this is my most recent book of poetry with Hanging Loose Press. It's called Buried Alive, a to-do list, and I have copies available if anyone's interested. And I'm going to be reading a new poem. So as I mentioned, it's a love poem to the tree in my backyard, which is actually a large bush. It is a viburnum called a snowball bush for you gardening people out there. I am not, but this tree is there. And a couple of weeks a year, it blossoms with these big clusters of flowers that smell kind of good and kind of gross. And I love this tree because I don't have to do anything to take care of it, and it's always been there as long as we've had our house. Ode to a Snowball Bush. Tree, what are you holding up for me in your arms? White clusters of tiny stars with tinier pink smudges around their stem holes, like miniature anuses or ani. Each cluster perpetually bud, blossom, and brownish crumble to instruct me, let me peer into time. The present may not be the present at all, but a slow explosion of opening, only to close, folding in on itself. How can you bear bearing these mangled little stems, the shed flowers dusting the path, singed like paper scraps in a flame, while new flowers peep into being, suspended over emptiness, rubbing their innocent heads gently against the rot? A very old painting of some mostly forgotten saint depicts his stoning, his blowing breath into the drowned boy, and his own birth into the midwife's towel, all on one canvas for economy. The churchyard stinks of blossoms laid in helpless devotion, stinks like the snowball bush does 3 weeks out of the year. What is the smell? Decay, flesh, or the product my mother sprayed in the bathroom, florid, avoided, forgiven? or baby powder tinged with Parliament cigarette smoke and stale rose perfume. The rose perfume was also very old. It was a tiny glass vial taped to a card with a rose picture. The cellophane tape already yellowed, turning brown, given by a forgotten aunt, dead or maybe a few years left, which I, the little girl, kept in my top bureau drawer among the underpants, to sometimes twist and unplug the plastic stopper with great difficulty to smell the rose smell, which was slightly awful in its grown womanness. Then stopping it up again, carefully situating the vial under the piece of tape. We didn't have a snowball bush or a garden. I have these things now by some kind of miracle, and a miracle it survived. The tree was there. It was there before the property was mine. And when the cinder block wall fell dead on it and smashed it to 3 sticks, the 3 sticks were one for each of the future, past, and present, and so it didn't forget how to live. It roared back with its odorous flowers, the clusters like snow, though it was spring, all seasons encapsulated. Tree, I've lived with you so long. Keep me company in another green space one day. We'll both be transplants. I'll be waiting for the 3 weeks when you open. The bees are loving it. I'll hear them even from under the earth. I'll know it's early spring long into the night. I'll be wearing a white brooch clustered with tiny star-like flowers that last forever, ornamenting the formal dress. I'll wear the rose perfume so you can remember who I am. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Mabel Lee, and I will be reading 4 poems tonight. I am losing my voice. Please bear with me. I had a little tickle in my throat this morning, and I teach middle school, so it's almost gone now. The first poem I will be reading is called 24 Hours. On Venus, a day equates to 116 3/4 of our own sunrise to sunrise, where a world is conceived. At the threshold, your hand moves forward to pull up the blinds. The dust motes hang without intention of settling. An orchid waits expectant for the light, but your hand is still yet to reach up. Yet the dust will never fall, except when you turn away or sleep or find a friend in a dream. Has not only a day, but a decade gone by like rain at dawn. You are not sure what you will find in the mirror. A night is long when the drawers are full and the pages are blank. Soon the church bells chime from down the street, the way each Sunday blinks back fear and blinks again, so that next week appears fresh as déjà vu as you open the door to look at the sky. Looks the same as 32 years ago when you were born, when you got here from someplace else, where a day knows no real end and has been forever beginning. The next poem is called Memento 2. The ephemera of my blinked existence live in shoeboxes, cigar cases dust-lined and discolored as if from slow fire, smoking through teenage correspondence, solemn feelings, molars, and other artifacts dropped from us and kept for the reason why there may be birds which forget to find their lives beautiful when nesting, when soaring, and anxious on telephone lines. I dig up the source, but am pulled under because there was more to the story that had or hadn't happened. Tickets and once-scented kerchiefs and the newness of love, a mirror that isn't. We ultimately do not stumble upon ourselves, only someone else who remembers by keeping. This next poem is called Talisman. He shows us the dark red twist of the open circle. Leather, some kind of animal hide dyed and polished. The easy smile never disappears from his dark face. Rojo para el amor, negro el sexo. The black I won't need, I joke. He laughs and we pay him. It's too large on my bird wrist. It slides easily and sits awkward around my thin bones. I leave it unworn on the shelf. Weeks later, when I run into you at the same bar, the small world seems to have toppled. You glance at the bracelet's peculiarity grazing my sleeves for a second as I hold up my glass of beer. Laughing at the irony, I fume at your mistakes and decide I couldn't care less what either of the two words meant between us. On the island, our conversations converge on chance, slow attempts to close those blank distances, driving along the empty road, sea, black volcanic rocks, the same song playing over and over on the radio each time I search the channels. You're a witch, you say, and look at me in disbelief. And this last poem is a nerdy prose poem trying to be promiscuous. It's called Textual Preferences. I am partial to adjectives, though I know in excess they could be taboo. I enjoy series of threes with a hapful ending. I engage bravely in semicolon and dash play. I enjoy the role reversals in parts of speech and the positional obfuscation of syntax. Melodic turns of phrase arouse me, the lustrous peal of words riding like blood through the body. A startling sentence, well-proportioned stanza, a slip of suggestion, all a pleasurable propensity when a line is spoken and swallowed like wine. The flow and drip of the utterance, the heat and the ice in process of becoming a message, a poem, used for the art of making sacred, obliterating barriers. Friction is the subversion of rules and the basis of all good text. Thank you so much.
All right, hello everybody. My name's Jonathan Todd. I'm going to be reading a couple poems. One of them is from my chapbook, Overtime, which I have copies of, and you can buy them so I can pretend that I don't have to go to work tomorrow. This first poem is called Repetition, and the first line is French, and if I mess it up, I apologize. I didn't go to college. Plus c'est la même chose, and it's the same thing. And it's the same thing to expect ruin and action, an automatic thing like drink coffee or become caught under the overhang, or in group admit that I've never really felt like an adult. Define completion or conflict of cessation, and it's the same thing. Gestures or ritual without meaning. Panic in class as in, will you discover the degree to which I am making up sounds as I go? Stillness, grabbing one leg to fold it over hundreds of times, intricate mess to crumble and hurl towards heaven, and it's the same thing, with music tightening ways to disrupt the air, thinking of sending you an invisible letter, which is me talking to myself in circles, adorned with memory, and it's the same thing. The second poem is not what it says it's going to be on the list. I apologize. I changed it. It's short. Don't worry. Hopefully you'll like it. It's called Thanks for Coming. And since this is about like love and loss, this was kind of written after a falling out with a friend. So thanks for coming. Give us the space to work around this grease stain. May I have my record back? May I have my record back? Hey, can I have my record back? You leaned onto a late snowfall full of heat and sank as quickly into water. What do we make of elementary thing? Belly of a temple is wherever we place ourselves or peel back something like layers. reveal in revealing, or revel in revealing. We get consumed and sticky, hands bound to the walls, to the roads, to the railing, help to push up. We could break off or break in just off of our own memory, shatter our guard by signing our intentions. And this last poem is called Curiosity, and it's in the book. Woo! No, it's called Curiosity. I watched your hands grow manic as hair fell, and wanted it more than anything. Like I was looking through your eyes, but I wasn't. And somewhere around the 15th beer, I walked out and told you our secret. And it was after they crossed sand and spit, when we sunk and became aroused, blinking blue sweet looks, I caught a sigh willingly. And I sighed with you too. From towers of steam we built a sun silently, with eyes full of hawks, and the worst we're gonna get is a hangover. And I don't believe in this really, but we build our myths to help talk to people about how poorly lit our houses are. And from the window I watch sleep hang over you as you press your face into the sand, waiting on our backs for relief. Thank you.
This first poem, maybe some of you have reached this stage in your relationship. Maybe you'll never get there. Maybe you'll avoid it. 42 places. As time passed, they didn't need to study love, pray for it, or even speak its name. Instead, they lived their love silently. Secrets remained secret. As love sank into unbending bones, fused with supple corpuscles, and seeped through the soft skin beneath their fingernails. Only by looking back and naming each of the 42 places in order that they had journeyed, did they realize they had grown into an old couple who survived a long-forgotten stopover in bickering and concession, and the should and should not have saids they should never have crossed, leaving only unspoken love perpetuated by the comfort and intimacy of taking each other for granted. Those cold late fall, early winter rains, my roof started to leak, and I wrote this poem about the leaking roof, and I realized something was missing. And after the whole poem was written, I thought and thought and thought about it and added 2 words to the second line, which changed it completely. You'll hear those 2 words. Leaky roof. All on their own, the soft undersides of love fail first. They need no reminding or prodding. On cue, they erode like soft felt or tar paper. Weakening, they lose their hold, succumb to decades of neglect or maybe forgetfulness. The tedious back and forth journey of ants, inquisitive nibble of mice at night, or simply time reawakening, only to disintegrate again. Think of a nail losing its grip, its reluctant release after alternating days of chill and heat, wet and dry, the strain of contraction, the release of expansion, finally easing its way out of plywood sheathing after so many decades. Listen for the tumbling rush of winter's first cold rain, exploring dry or invisible paths by blind instinct alone, working its way under the hard tile roof, the ungainly splat, 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 steadying into the joyous rhythm of water dripping from joists onto a yellow velvet love seat, leaving a ring of dirt and minerals long after it dries. My in-laws have a plum tree in their backyard, And that's the basis of this poem, but it also speaks of my wife's intuition. Elephant heart plums. You didn't need the sun to yawn above the horizon for evidence that night had long since gone. Your heart's prescience told you things well in advance. Which plums to pick, which to leave for 3 more days to ripen, how to make me laugh or grieve, and precisely when to bite me open, the red juice trickling down your chin. So I've been writing anniversary poems for Claudia for a long time. This one is called Supplicant, 2 anniversaries ago. And spoiler alert, she is not the supplicant. Supplicant. Caressing your cello, not child, not lover, you draw the bow across wound metal strings, coaxing air into sound. Its resonance resonates within you, the core of you reverberating. Within me, supple grace notes and trills rejoice, like prayers and supplications granted, but never fully deserved. And I'll close with a tiny meta-poem about love. Love, you are a small poem, easy to underestimate, impossible to forget. And I have 2 books with me, a micro chapbook that's brand new, and a full length. So.
Thanks to all of you who read tonight. I really appreciate all your hard work, and I think it went really well. Thanks to all of you who attended and came to hear the poets. We're going to have some food and drinks in the dining room, so please join us. Thank you.